guys, and welcome back to Boring Money for Sleep. Tonight, we're traveling back to 1720s London. You've probably seen the paintings and read the novels. A city of grand opportunity, of gentlemen in powdered wigs and ladies in fine silks. A place where fortunes are made with a flash of wit and a bold adventure. But tonight, you're going to experience the truth. You're about to discover that for most people, 18th century London wasn't a golden dream. It was a cold, damp, and desperate machine, and you were just one of its countless disposable parts. If you're enjoying these stories, a quick like or subscribe really does help the channel more than you know. It's a small click, but it means a lot. I'm always curious where you're all listening from, so drop your city and time in the comments. I love seeing our little community of night owls and history fans stretching all across the globe. Okay, take a deep breath. Now, dim the lights, settle into bed, and let's go back. The poets and the pamphleteers sing of London as the new Rome, a glittering jewel of commerce and empire. They write of fortunes plucked from the air in Exchange Alley, of merchants whose ships returned from the Indies with their hulls heavy with spice and silver. This is the myth of London. It is a wonderful story. It is also a lie. Your London, the only one you have ever known, is a creature of mud and smoke. Its gold is the fleeting, sickly yellow of a winter sunrise fighting through the coal haze. Its silver is the thin, greasy film of rain that coats the cobblestones outside your window. And the only thing plucked from the air is the lung-puckering stench of the tanneries when the wind blows from the west. The day begins, as it always does, with the cold. It is not a dramatic, bracing cold. It is a patient, seeping dampness that has worked its way into the thin wool of your blanket, into the lumpy straw of your mattress, and deep into your bones. You feel it in your joints as you swing your legs out of bed, your bare feet meeting the gritty, uneven floorboards of your garret room in Cheapside. You are Arthur Finch. You are 22 years old, and you are poorer than you have ever been. You don't need a mirror to know what you look like. Your reflection swims in the small, grimy window pane. A lean silhouette, a face made of sharp angles by a diet that is more hope than substance. Your only set of respectable clothes is draped over the single wooden chair, a woolen coat patched at the elbows, and a linen shirt, washed so many times the fabric is nearly translucent. These are not clothes, they are a costume. They are the uniform for the role you play every day. A man of sober prospects, a man with a head for figures, a man who is not slowly starving in a third-floor room. Your stomach is a hollow ache, a familiar companion. Downstairs, your landlady, Mrs. Gable, will be stewing cabbage. Again, the smell already haunts the stairwell, a phantom of bland, watery meals. The rent is due in 3 days. 4 shillings, a fortune. Your pocket contains 3 pence and a collection of lint. This is the mathematics that truly matters, not the complex algebra of university men, but the brutal, simple arithmetic of survival. 4 shillings is an impassable mountain. 3 pence is a pebble at its base. You pull on the costume, your fingers stiff with cold. Every movement is a calculation. You cannot afford to wear out the leather of your shoes too quickly. You cannot afford to scuff the wool of your coat. You are your only asset, and your appearance is your only collateral. You walk down the narrow, creaking stairs and out into the roaring chaos of Cheapside. The air is a thick soup of horse manure, baking bread, coal smoke, and the press of 1,000 unwashed bodies. A symphony of shouts, hooves, and bells fills your ears. This is the machine, and you have to find your place in it, a tiny cog that will not be ground to dust. Your destination is a public house called the Bull and Bear, a dim, smoky establishment where second-tier merchants and their clerks conduct their business over mugs of lukewarm ale. It is not the famous Jonathan's Coffee House where the real sharks of finance swim. This is the shallow end of the pool, full of smaller, hungrier fish. For the price of a half pint you can't really afford, you get access to a corner table, a bit of warmth from the fire, and, most importantly, information. You spend your days here nursing your drink, your ears open, poring over the shipping news in yesterday's paper, your mind a silent, frantic engine of calculation. You offer your services to the men who drink here, checking their ledgers, drafting their letters, calculating their yields. Your mind for numbers is the only thing of value you possess. Most days, it earns you a few pennies. Not enough. Never enough. Today, you are checking accounts for Mr. Davies, a portly wool merchant with ink stains on his cuffs and worry etched deep into his brow. He suspects his factor in Bristol is cheating him. He slides a heavy ledger across the sticky table, the leather cover worn smooth with use. He claims the carriage costs have risen. Davies grumbles, his voice a low rumble. A full 10%, says the roads are worse than ever. See if it holds, Finch. See if the numbers lie. The numbers always tell a story, and you are their most fluent interpreter. You ignore the boisterous laughter from the bar, the clatter of tankards, the low murmur of a dozen other deals being made. For you, the world shrinks to these columns of figures. You trace the lines of spidery ink, your mind moving faster than your finger. Carriage costs, weights, distances, market prices. A familiar rhythm takes over, a sense of order in the chaos. It feels like coming home. And then you see it. It's not in the carriage costs. The factor is too clever for that. The lie is buried deeper in the conversion of weights. A subtle, systematic miscalculation, shaving a few pounds of wool off every bale. A tiny theft repeated 100 times over. It's elegant in its deception, it's brilliant, and it is a fraud. You look up from the page, your thoughts ordering themselves. And as you do, you become aware of a stillness nearby. A man is watching you. He sits alone at a table by the window, a place of quiet observation. He is not one of the usual patrons. His coat is of a fine, dark velvet that seems to drink the light of the room. He holds a heavy, polished ebony walking stick. He is tall and broad, and the air of quiet, predatory authority around him is so palpable it feels like a drop in temperature. He is Silas Blackwood. You know him by reputation only, a man who clawed his way from obscurity to immense wealth, a man they say has ice in his veins and a ledger for a soul. His gray eyes meet yours. There is no warmth in them, only appraisal. It's the look a master craftsman gives a tool, testing its weight and balance. You feel a prickle of unease on your neck. You quickly turn back to the wool merchant. "Mr. Davies," you say, your voice low and steady, though your heart is hammering against your ribs. The carriage costs are a distraction. Look here at the weights recorded in Bristol versus the sale weights in London. Your factor is not paying for bad roads. He is stealing your wool, a little from every shipment. You explain the simple, vicious mathematics of the scheme. Davis's face cycles through confusion, to disbelief, to a final sputtering rage. He throws a few pennies onto the table, more than you expected, and storms out of the public house, shouting for his clerk. You are left in the sudden quiet of his departure, your hand hovering over the coins. This is a victory. It should feel good, but your attention is pulled back to the man by the window. Silas Blackwood rises from his chair and walks toward you. His footsteps are heavy, measured, each one landing with deliberate force on the floorboards. He stops at your table, looming over you. "Finch," he says. His voice is a low, calm baritone, yet it cuts through the noise of the room. You have a respectable mind. You see the trick, not the performance. That is a rare and profitable quality. You can only nod, your throat suddenly dry. The smell of expensive tobacco and something cold, like winter air, clings to him. "Men like Davies," Blackwood continues, gesturing vaguely toward the door. "They see only what they are told. They read the story they are given. You read the language beneath it, the true language, the numbers." He pauses, his eyes boring into you. That mind is wasted here, tallying stolen wool for half-wits. It is a fine instrument being used to chop wood. He reaches into his velvet coat and produces a purse that clinks with the heavy, muffled sound of gold. He doesn't open it. He simply places a single solitary coin on the table beside your meager pennies. A shilling, 12 pence, a third of your rent. Be at my townhouse on St. James's Square tomorrow at dawn, he says. It is not a request. You will work for me now. I will teach you what to do with a mind like yours. I will teach you how to use it as a weapon. He turns and walks away without another word, leaving the shilling gleaming in the gloom. You stare at it. It's more than a day's wages for a job you haven't even accepted yet. It is an offer, a summons, a down payment on your future, or perhaps on your soul. You reach out and pick it up. The silver is cold and heavy in your palm, the face of the king worn smooth by the hands of 1,000 other men. You close your fist around it, the metal pressing into your skin. It feels like a promise, and it feels like a cage. Dawn in London is not a sunrise. It is a negotiation. A weak gray light cautiously bargains with the stubborn darkness and the thick blanket of coal smoke, eventually settling on a truce that satisfies no one. You stand before the grand, imposing facade of Silas Blackwood's townhouse in St. James's Square. The shilling from yesterday, a cold, heavy secret in your pocket. The air here is different from Cheapside. It is thin and sharp, scrubbed clean of the thick, greasy smells of the masses. It feels quieter, as if the silence itself is an expensive commodity that you cannot yet afford. You were told to be here at dawn, and you are. Punctuality is the currency of the ambitious poor. You raise your hand to the heavy iron knocker on the black lacquered door, but before your knuckles touch the metal, the door swings silently inward. A severe-looking butler, a man who seems to have been carved from the same stern material as the house itself, looks down his nose at you. He doesn't ask your name. He simply nods once, a gesture of grim acknowledgement, and steps aside. You step out of the damp London morning and into another world. The chaos, the noise, the very smell of the city is cut off as the heavy door thuds shut behind you. The silence inside is absolute, a thick, pressurized stillness broken only by the loud, rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock at the far end of the hall. This is not the warm, companionable silence of a sleeping home. It is the cold, sterile silence of a vault. The entrance hall is a vast cavern of black and white marble. High above, a plaster ceiling displays severe geometric patterns. There are no paintings on the walls, no portraits of ancestors, no clutter of life. There is only space, symmetry, and the chilling echo of your own worn-out shoes on the polished stone. The butler leads you without a word through this grand emptiness and into a study. Here, the cold opulence continues. The walls are lined with floor-to-ceiling shelves, but they are not filled with poetry or philosophy. They are packed with ledgers, identical in their dark leather bindings, their spines marked with years and cryptic symbols. A massive globe, its brass fittings gleaming, stands in one corner. In the center of the room is a mahogany desk, its surface a vast, empty sea of polished wood, broken only by a single pristine stack of paper, a silver inkstand, and a sharpened quill. This is not a room for leisurely reading. It is a command center, a place for dissecting the world and rendering it into columns of profit and loss. Silas Blackwood is standing by the tall window, his back to you, looking out over the manicured green of the square. He holds a cup of what you assume is coffee, the steam rising in a thin, straight line into the cool air. Punctuality, he says, without turning. The most basic form of capital. It requires no breeding, only discipline. You have it. Good. He turns, his gray eyes sweeping over you, taking in your patched coat and worn shoes. There is no judgment in his gaze, only assessment. He is weighing you, calculating your value. That coat is a liability. It marks you as a petitioner, a man who needs, rather than a man who has. We will rectify that. But first, your education. He gestures for you to follow, and for the next hour he gives you a tour of the house. He does not show you drawing rooms or bedrooms. He shows you his system. The small, cold office where two pale, silent clerks manage his correspondence. The locked room he calls the archive, containing decades of shipping manifests, price lists, and gazettes. An army cannot march without maps, he says, tapping a row of ledgers. A fortune cannot be built without data. The house is a fortress built to protect and grow his wealth. It is a machine. And you realize with a sudden chill that he is not inviting you into his home. He is showing you his primary weapon, and you are to be a new, freshly sharpened component within it. I have no use for your labor, Finch, he says, his voice echoing slightly in the sterile hall. Your hands are of no interest to me. The clerks can manage the ink and the paper. I hired your mind, and a mind, like a muscle, must be exercised in the proper gymnasium. His gymnasium, you soon learn, is Jonathan's coffee house. You walk beside him through the streets, a study in contrasts. His heavy, confident strides and your quick, nervous ones. His dark, velvet coat that seems to repel the city's grime, and your thin wool one that feels like it's soaking it all in. As you move east, the character of the city changes. The clean, quiet austerity of St. James's gives way to the boisterous, chaotic commerce of the city. The air grows thicker, the crowds denser. When you step into Exchange Alley, the noise hits you like a physical blow. Jonathan's is nothing like the Bull and Bear. The air is electric, thick with smoke, sweat, and the palpable hum of immense sums of money changing hands. Men in fine coats and powdered wigs stand in loud, jostling groups. They shout, they scribble notes on scraps of paper, they jab fingers at one another. Messengers rush in and out, their faces slick with sweat. This is not a place for idle gossip over ale. It is a frantic, seething marketplace of information and speculation. Congratulations, you've made it to the heart of the machine. And it's terrifying. Blackwood navigates the chaos with an unnerving calm, like a shark gliding through a shoal of frantic fish. He secures a small table in a dark corner, a vantage point from which you can see the entire room. He orders 2 coffees, black and bitter. Forget the numbers in your ledgers for a moment, he says, his voice a low counterpoint to the room's roar. Those are history. The numbers that matter are the ones that have not yet been written, and they are all here, in this room, disguised as conversations. He begins your lesson. He teaches you not what to look at, but how to look. He points out a man whose wig is slightly askew and whose hands are trembling. That is Sir Thomas Lyle, Blackwood murmurs. He has over-leveraged himself in East India stock. He is trying to project confidence, but his fear is a stench. He will sell before midday. The price will dip. He directs your attention to a quiet conversation between 2 Dutch merchants. They are not talking about the weather. They are talking about the grain futures in Amsterdam. Listen to the cadence of their speech. See how they lean in? That is the sound of a secret. A secret that will be worth a fortune in 3 days, time when the official news arrives. He teaches you to see the room as a living organism driven by 2 forces alone, fear and greed. Every boast is a signal. Every whisper is a clue. The news sheets and price lists they post on the walls are just the surface, the official story. The truth, he explains, is in the nervous tics, the sweat-beaded brows, the desperate glances. He is teaching you to be a predator. And in the frantic, churning waters of 1720 London, the hunting is very, very good. For weeks, this becomes your life. You spend your days in the chaotic crucible of Jonathan's, your senses overwhelmed, your mind racing to keep up. You learn to filter the noise, to identify the credible whispers, to follow the invisible threads of influence that connect the men in the room. At night, you return to your cold garret and, by candlelight, you fill your own ledger not with hard figures, but with observations, rumors, and predictions. Your mind is being forged into a new shape, honed to a sharp analytical edge. You are learning to keep your money, the idea of it, the path to it, entirely in your head. The opportunity, when it comes, is not dramatic. It arrives on a damp Tuesday morning, printed in small, dense type on a freshly delivered copy of the Daily Courant. It is a short report, easily missed, about a storm in the Levant that has delayed a convoy of ships carrying raw silk. While others in the room are frantically trading South Sea shares, their attention fixed on the great rising bubble, you remember a name from one of Blackwood's ledgers. A silk weaver in Spitalfields, whose contract to deliver a massive order to a wealthy client is dependent on that very shipment. You do the calculations in your head. The weaver will be desperate. His business will be ruined if he cannot procure the raw silk he needs. His desperation will make him cheap. You know from another whisper you overheard last week that a rival merchant, a man named Patterson, has a warehouse full of raw silk he bought months ago, sitting on it and waiting for the price to rise. You take the information to Blackwood, your heart, a nervous drum against your ribs. You lay out the scenario, the logic clean and cold. Patterson has the supply. The weaver has the demand. The storm has created the leverage. If we buy Patterson's entire stock now, before he realizes the full value of the Levant news, we can sell it to the weaver tomorrow for a 30% profit. Blackwood listens, his face an unreadable mask. He sips his coffee, his gaze fixed on you. The silence stretches, each tick of the great clock in the corner of the room a hammer blow. Then, he gives a single sharp nod. "Execute it," he says. "Use my name, but use your mind. Do not fail." The negotiation with Patterson is a blur of feigned indifference and sharp, calculated offers. You channel Blackwood's cold pragmatism, pushing the price down, exploiting Patterson's ignorance of the delayed convoy. You feel a thrill, a surge of power that is clean and intellectual. It's a game of intellect, and you are winning. The next day, you face the desperate weaver. You see the fear in his eyes, the same fear you feel every time you count the pennies for your rent. A part of you, the old you from Cheapside, feels a pang of pity. But Blackwood's voice is in your ear. Fear is leverage. You name your price. It is exorbitant. It is cruel. It will save his business, but it will cost him nearly everything. He accepts. He has no choice. That evening, back in the silence of Blackwood's study, you present the final accounting, a net profit of £200. A staggering sum, enough to pay your rent for more than 16 years. Blackwood reviews your figures. He looks up, and for the first time, you see something that resembles approval in his cold eyes. "You have a good head for this business, Finch." He pushes a small, heavy purse across the desk. "Your commission, £20, a fortune." Later that night, you sit at the small table in your garret. The single candle sputters, casting dancing shadows on the walls. You open your ledger. The page is clean, the lines sharp and empty. You dip your quill into the ink pot. The scratch of the nib on the paper is the only sound. You write the date. You write the details of the transaction, the purchase from Patterson, the sale to the weaver. And then you write the final figure. Your profit, £20. The number sits on the page, clean, perfect, and absolute. There is no trace in the ink of the weaver's fear, no hint of Patterson's ignorance. There is only the cold, beautiful, and satisfying logic of the number itself. The success feels pure. It is a victory of the mind. You close the ledger, the feeling in your chest not of guilt or pity, but of a clean, quiet, intellectual power. You have kept the money and all its messy business entirely in your head. Your success with the silk transaction does not go unnoticed. It has proven your worth to Blackwood, not as a mere clerk, but as a sharp and effective instrument. You have graduated. Your days are no longer spent simply observing in the coffee house. You are now entrusted with small, precise missions. You feel the change in yourself. Your posture is straighter. Your gaze is more direct. You have moved out of the
We
damp
regret to
garret in
inform you of the
Cheapside
new
and into a
terms.
slightly larger, cleaner room in a more respectable street. You have a second shirt. This is the tangible evidence of your ascent. It is the proof that the cold logic of the head works. One morning, Blackwood summons you to his study. The fire crackles in the grate, the only source of warmth in the vast, chilly room. He has a large map of London spread across his desk, the city rendered in precise, spidery lines of ink. His long finger, a pale wand of command, is resting on the dense, chaotic tangle of streets you once called home, Cheapside. An opportunity has presented itself, Finch, he says, his voice as dry as old parchment. A consortium, backed by Lord Allingford, wishes to build a new, grander merchants' exchange, a temple to capital. But they need the land. His finger circles a block of properties, a collection of small workshops and tenements. They are too wealthy and too impatient to acquire these lots one by one. They will pay a handsome premium for a consolidated parcel. Our task is to provide it. This isn't a trade in abstract futures or commodities. This is a business of wood, brick, and lives. It's 18th century property development, which is a polite way of saying you're about to erase a piece of the city. These are small men, Blackwood continues, a hint of disdain in his tone, artisans, shopkeepers. They are tied to their leases by sentiment and inertia. They will not sell to a man like Lord Allingford, whose name alone will make them suspicious. But they will sell to a man who can convince them that ruin is coming tomorrow, and that the pittance he offers today is their only salvation. He looks at you, his gray eyes pinning you in place. You are from this place, you know its rhythms, its fears, you speak its language. You will be my local agent. Go there. Secure these leases. I have authorized a fund for the acquisitions. The less of it you spend, the larger your commission. He slides a list of names and addresses across the polished desk. Do not fail. You walk out of the grand silence of St. James's Square and back into the roaring, familiar chaos of Cheapside. But it is not familiar anymore. Or rather, you are not. Your new, more expensive coat feels like a costume again. But this time it separates you, marking you as an outsider. The smells of baking bread and coal smoke are no longer the simple smells of home. They are the smells of the past, of a life you are paying a steep price to escape. You are not Arthur Finch, the clever boy from the third-floor garret. You are Mr. Finch, an agent of Silas Blackwood. You are the man who brings the bad news. The first few acquisitions are difficult, but not impossible. You visit a candlemaker, a grim-faced man whose workshop smells of tallow and beeswax. You speak to a cooper, whose hands are stained and calloused from a lifetime of shaping wood. You use the arguments Blackwood taught you. You speak of rising rents, of new taxes, of the changing face of the city. You plant seeds of fear and doubt. You are not buying their leases. You are offering them an escape from a future you are inventing for them. You leave each workshop with a signed piece of paper, your purse a little lighter, and a cold, hard knot tightening in your stomach. You record each transaction in your ledger, the numbers crisp and clean, but you cannot stop seeing the worried faces of the men you have just dispossessed. And then you arrive at the address third, from the bottom of your list. Vance & Son, miniaturists. A small, familiar sign hangs above a modest shop front. A cold dread, sharp and unwelcome, washes over you. You remember this place. You remember Eleanor. You push open the door. A small bell tinkles. The air inside is warm and smells of linseed oil, turpentine, and drying pigments. It is a world away from the cold, sterile logic of Blackwood's townhouse. Tiny, exquisite portraits, no bigger than the palm of your hand, are displayed on the walls. Each one is a marvel of detail, a life captured in a few delicate brushstrokes. This is a place where value is measured in skill and beauty, not shillings and pence. Eleanor is at a workbench by the window, a magnifying lens held to one eye, her hands steady as she applies a microscopic fleck of white to the lace collar of a tiny painted lady. She looks up as you enter, and a genuine smile lights up her face. "Arthur, I'd heard you'd found a fine position in the city. Look at you." Her warmth and lack of pretense are a physical blow. They make your fine coat feel like a suit of armor, heavy and false. You see her father, a frail, elderly man with paint-stained fingers and cloudy eyes, sitting in a chair by the hearth. "Thee and son," on the sign outside, is a relic of a brother lost to fever years ago. The business, you realize, rests entirely on Eleanor's slender shoulders. You try to make small talk, but the purpose of your visit hangs in the air between you, heavy and foul. Eventually, you can avoid it no longer. You explain your proposition, the words tasting like ash in your mouth. You speak of a generous offer, of an opportunity to relocate. You are reciting a script, and it sounds hollow even to you. Her father, frail as he is, understands immediately. "He wants to tear it all down," he says, his voice thin and reedy. "This shop has been in our family for 3 generations. We will not sell." Eleanor's smile is gone, replaced by a look of confusion, and then dawning horror as she understands your role in this. "Arthur, you can't be serious," she says, her voice quiet. "This is our home. This is the moment, the pivot point. You can retreat. You can go back to Blackwood and admit failure. Tell him your heart isn't cold enough for this work." You can almost feel the damp chill of your old garret seeping back into your bones at the thought, the gnawing hunger returning to your belly. The memory of that poverty is a powerful, terrifying thing. Or you can be the man Blackwood is paying you to be. You remember something else. The piece of cheapside gossip you heard weeks ago, a fragment of information stored away by your newly trained mind. A debt. A loan the Vances took out from a moneylender to pay for a doctor when the old man was sick. A debt that is coming due. You know this, and you know they cannot pay it. It is the key. It is the crowbar Blackwood expects you to use. "I understand this is difficult," you say, your voice now colder, more distant. You are playing a role. Mr. Finch, the agent. But the offer is more than fair, and it is final. It would be a shame if your other creditors were not so understanding. You do not say the word moneylender, yea. You do not have to. The shot lands. You see the color drain from Eleanor's face. You see her look at her frail father. You have taken her home, her history, and her love for her father, and you have turned them into weapons to be used against her. She says nothing for a long time. The only sound is the ticking of a small clock on the mantelpiece, each tick measuring out a moment of your betrayal. "You have changed, Arthur," she finally says, her voice barely a whisper. She does not look at you. She looks at one of her own miniatures, a portrait of a smiling young woman, a world of life and warmth captured in a tiny oval. "I hope the price you are paid is worth what you are losing." She signs the document. Her father, his hand trembling, makes his mark. You push the small purse of coins, the price of their home, their history, across the table. It feels obscene. You take the signed lease. It feels like a confession. You walk away from the workshop, the tinkling of the bell behind you like a final, sad goodbye. You do not look back. The commission from Blackwood will be substantial. You should feel victorious. You have been tested, and you have succeeded. You have proven you have the stomach for this business. But there is no triumph, only a hollow, aching void in your chest. That night, you sit in your new, better room. It is not cold, it is not damp, but it offers no comfort. You open your ledger. The book, once a source of clean intellectual satisfaction, now seems to mock you. You dip your quill. You try to make the entry. The acquisition of the Vance property, the price paid, the projected profit for Blackwood. But the numbers are no longer clean. They are smeared with the smell of turpentine and the memory of Eleanor's disappointed eyes. The black ink on the page looks like a stain, a permanent record of your compromise. For the first time, the money is not just in your head, it is in your heart, a cold, heavy weight, and it feels exactly like guilt. The guilt from the cheapside affair is a persistent, low-grade fever in your soul. It is the ghost of Eleanor's disappointed face that visits you in the quiet moments before sleep. It is the memory of the cold finality in her father's eyes. But you soon discover that 1720s London, for a man with a rising income, offers a powerful anesthetic for a troubled conscience: money. And all of London has gone mad for it. A financial fever has gripped the city, a collective delirium that empties the workshops, silences the theaters, and fills Exchange Alley with a frantic, praying mob. The source of this contagion is a single entity: the South Sea Company, a trading house with a grand title, a few ships, and a mountain of government debt. By some strange alchemy of politics and public hope, the entire nation has decided that this company's shares are the one true path to earthly salvation. It is the only topic of conversation, the only news that matters. Welcome to the South Sea Bubble. It's a moment in history when an entire society agrees to believe in a beautiful, profitable lie. Jonathan's coffee house has transformed from a den of shrewd calculation into the high church of this new religion. The air, once merely thick with smoke, is now suffocatingly hot, charged with the electric current of mass hysteria. Men stand on benches, their faces red, their wigs askew, screaming prices to the ceiling. Dukes and footmen, merchants and poets, all pressed together, their social stations erased by their shared, desperate greed. They are not trading stock, they are chasing miracles. Through all this madness, Silas Blackwood remains a pillar of cold contempt. He still takes his corner table, observing the chaos with the detached curiosity of a naturalist studying an ant colony that has lost its mind. "Look at them, Finch," he murmurs to you one afternoon, his voice a low island of calm in the roaring sea of noise. "Fools, every last one of them. They believe they are masters of their own destiny. They are simply bubbles in a boiling pot, and the fire is controlled by men they will never meet." He explains the brutal mechanics of the bubble to you, not as a miracle, but as a carefully engineered piece of machinery. He talks of government insiders, of planted rumors, of the psychology of a mob that is terrified of being the last one to join the dance. "It is not a business," he says with a sneer. "It is a grand and glorious theft, where the victims fight to hand over their purses." He forbids you from participating. We deal in realities, in ships, in commodities, in the predictable desperation of weavers. This is a phantom. Do not waste your mind on it. You nod in agreement. You see the logic in his words, but you also see the results of the madness. You see Mr. Davies, the wool merchant, preening in a new silk coat, boasting of how he has tripled his fortune. You see clerks who were poorer than you a month ago now, drinking French wine and talking of buying country estates. The guilt from the Vance deal still gnaws at you, and this feels different. This feels clean. It is not money taken from a specific person's hands, from a family you know. It is money from the market, an abstract, victimless entity. It is a win that would feel purely intellectual, a victory of timing and nerve, not of cruel leverage. The temptation is a constant, rising hum in your blood. Blackwood's commission, the £20 from the silk deal, sits untouched, locked in a small box in your room. It is the seed of a potential fortune. To follow Blackwood's advice is to remain his salaried instrument. To defy him, to enter the bubble and win, is to become your own man. 1 week later, you do it. You tell Blackwood you are visiting a sick aunt, a clumsy lie that he seems to accept without interest. You do not go to Jonathan's. Instead, you go to a smaller, less reputable broker's office in a nearby alley. The air is just as frantic. You push your way to the counter, your heart hammering. You take out your savings, the £20 that felt like a fortune just weeks ago, and you buy a single share in the South Sea Company. The broker hands you the certificate. You have been dealing in paper for months, but this is different. It is a large, crisp sheet of the finest rag paper, cool and substantial to the touch. The engravings are magnificent. Proud ships sailing on calm seas, regal figures of Britannia and commerce, the bold, ornate seal of the company itself. It feels less like a financial instrument, and more like a royal decree. It feels real, it feels powerful. You hold it in your hands, a tangible piece of the future, and you feel the last of your mentor's cynical warnings evaporate like mist. You take the certificate back to your room and place it in your ledger. It is a foreign object in that world of stark, cold numbers, a splash of art and promise. And then the miracle happens. The price of South Sea stock, which was already fantastically high, explodes. It doubles in a week. Then it doubles again. The city is caught in a whirlwind. Your single share is suddenly worth £80, then 160. It is a fantasy. It is an absurdity. And it is happening. The numbers you write in your ledger now seem like fiction. They are untethered from any reality of work or production. They are just pure, exhilarating profit, born from nothing but the collective belief of the mob. The wealth, though on paper, transforms your reality. You buy a new suit, this one of fine wool with silver buttons. You buy a new wig. You move to a set of rooms in Covent Garden, a place with clean windows and a view of the sky. You eat in chop houses where the beef is thick and the wine is dark and French. You learn the swagger of the newly rich. You feel the change in how people look at you. The deference from shopkeepers, the admiring glances from women. The hollow ache of poverty is a distant memory, a story you once heard about someone else. You find yourself in Jonathan's not as an observer, but as a participant. You boast of your gains. You feel a kinship with these other gamblers. And you begin to understand Blackwood's cynicism from the other side. You look upon the cautious with pity, and upon the poor with a faint, unthinking contempt. They are the ones who lack the nerve, the vision. Their poverty, you start to believe, is a failure of imagination. The anesthetic is working perfectly. The ghost of Eleanor Vance no longer visits you. Her world of craft and conscience seems small and irrelevant now. A black and white miniature in a city that is exploding with the color of gold. One evening, you are dining alone, enjoying the satisfying weight of a silver fork in your hand, when Blackwood enters the same establishment. He sees you and, to your surprise, joins your table. "I see my advice was not as valuable as the wisdom of the mob," he says, his voice devoid of any emotion. He is not angry, merely observant. You, filled with the arrogance of your success, feel a need to justify yourself. "It is not a mob," you say, a little too loudly. "It is a new era, a new way of thinking about wealth." Blackwood allows himself a small, cold smile. It does not touch his eyes. "Indeed it is," he says. "Do enjoy your dinner, Finch. You have paid a great deal for it." He leaves you there, and a sliver of your old unease returns, but you push it down. You look at your reflection in the polished surface of your knife. You see a new man, a man of substance, a man of wealth. You have your money in your head, yes. You track the prices. You read the news. You are a student of the market. But for the first time, you feel it in your heart as well, a warm, intoxicating glow of pride and power that has burned away everything else. You are invincible. Every bubble has a pin. For the South Sea Company, it is not one single act, but 1,000 tiny, simultaneous pricks of doubt. It is a whispered rumor that Parliament is launching an inquiry. It is the quiet, unnoticed selling by a few key insiders. It is the dawning, terrifying realization that a company with no real profits and a few trading posts cannot possibly be worth more than the entire Kingdom of England. The collective fever of greed, which had burned so hot for so long, finally breaks and is replaced by the icy, shaking chill of fear.
The butler will see you out.
When it comes, is terrifyingly fast. You are in Jonathan's, the air thick with the usual boasts, when the first tremor hits. A well-known banker, a man whose confidence has always been a barometer for the market, is seen leaving in a hurry, his face the color of chalk. A silence, sudden and unnatural, falls over a corner of the room. Then the shouting starts again, but the tone is different. The confident roar of bidding is gone, replaced by the high, sharp shrieks of men trying to sell. The panic spreads like fire through dry grass. The great, beautiful lie that has held the city captive for months collapses in a single morning. The room, once a congregation of hopefuls, becomes a trampling, sweating mob of the damned. Men are weeping openly, tearing at their wigs. Fights break out. The price, which once seemed to have no ceiling, now seems to have no floor. You stand frozen, clutching the share certificate in your coat pocket, watching the numbers being chalked on the board. With each new lower figure, a piece of your new life is being erased. The fine suit, the rooms in Covent Garden, the French wine, the swagger, all of it, dissolving back into the phantom wealth from which it was born. £160 becomes 90, 90 becomes 40, 40 becomes 10. It is a brutal, relentless slaughter. The ornate piece of paper in your pocket, once a royal decree of your success, now feels like a tombstone. It is worthless. You are worthless. The noise is deafening, the sound of 1,000 fortunes dying in a single room. You stumble out of Exchange Alley, your ears ringing, your vision blurred. The city outside seems unreal, the faces of passers-by like ghostly masks. You have one last, desperate hope. Blackwood, he will know what to do. He is the master of this world. He will see a path through the ruin. You half walk, half run to St. James's Square, your breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. You are shown into his study. Nothing has changed. The room is as silent and orderly as ever. The fire crackles calmly in the grate. Blackwood sits behind his vast mahogany desk, calmly reading a letter. He does not seem to know that the world has ended. Blackwood, you gasp, leaning on the back of a chair for support. It's a catastrophe. The market has collapsed. We are ruined. He looks up from his letter, and his face is a mask of utter, infuriating calm. He slowly folds the paper and sets it aside. "Not we, Finch," he says, his voice as cool and polished as the desk that separates you. "You are ruined." A cold dread, far worse than the panic in the alley, begins to seep into your bones. "What do you mean?" you stammer. You were invested as well." "I was," he says. "I sold my position 3 weeks ago, at the very peak. The profit was, I must admit, quite substantial." You stare at him, the full, brutal weight of his words crushing you. He knew. He saw this coming, and he let you walk straight into the fire. He let the whole city burn, as long as he could profit from the ashes. "All those lessons," you whisper, the words catching in your throat. "All your warnings about the fools were perfectly sincere," he interrupts. "You simply chose to become one of them. You became intoxicated. You let the phantom of wealth creep out of your head where it belongs as a tool for calculation, and you allowed it into your heart as a source of pride and foolish hope." He stands up, the full, imposing weight of his presence filling the room. He walks to the fireplace, his back to you. "You have talent, Finch. But you lack the one essential quality for this business, a heart made of stone. You have learned a valuable, if expensive, lesson today. The market has no memory. It has no loyalty. It is a tide, and you either ride it with a cold and calculating mind, or you allow yourself to be swept away by its sentiment. You chose the latter." He turns back to you, his eyes as gray and unforgiving as a winter sky. "You are of no further use to me. The butler will see you out." The words are a final, brutal severance. He has not just fired you, he has erased you. You are cast out, back into the cold, back into the nothingness from which he plucked you. The walk back to your fine rooms in Covent Garden is the walk of a dead man. The beautiful suit you wear is a joke. The swagger is gone, replaced by a deep, gut-wrenching shame. You spend the night in a daze, the sounds of the city outside, a distant cry, a church bell tolling the hour, sounding like a funeral dirge for your own life. The next morning brings the cold, hard light of reality, a letter from your landlord demanding the quarter's rent, a bill from your tailor. You take stock. You empty your pockets, your drawers. It is all gone. The phantom wealth has vanished, but the debts it created are very real. You are not just poor again. You are worse than poor. You are in debt. You are frantically searching for anything of value, anything to sell, when your hand closes around a folded document in the bottom of your lockbox. It is not a share certificate. It is a loan agreement. You remember it clearly. 6 months ago, flush with your first commission, you lent £30 to Thomas Allen, a cabinet maker you knew from your Cheapside days. He was a good man, a skilled craftsman, who wanted to expand his workshop. You gave him the loan at a fair rate of interest. It was a sound investment, an act of a savvy businessman. You also know, with a sickening certainty, that Thomas, like everyone else, was caught in the bubble's undertow. You heard he sold his workshop's lease to buy South Sea shares, hoping to make enough to pay you back and secure his family's future. He, like you, will have been wiped out. He will have nothing, but you have this document. It is a legally binding contract. With it you can sue him. You can seize his tools, his furniture, what little his family has left. It will not make you rich again, but it will be enough. It will be enough to pay your landlord, to settle your debts, to survive. It is your only path back from the brink. And here is your choice, the final, brutal lesson of your education in finance. To save yourself, you must utterly destroy an innocent man who trusted you. You must take the cold, calculating logic Blackwood taught you and apply it with the ruthlessness of a headsman's axe. You can keep the money in your head, a simple matter of a debt owed and a contract to be enforced. It is the logical choice, the rational choice. Or you can let it into your heart. You can feel the weight of what this action would mean, the destruction of a family, the betrayal of a friend. You can forgive the debt and, in doing so, save your soul, but you will be accepting your own complete and utter ruin. You sit in the silent, expensive room you can no longer afford. In one hand, the landlord's demand. In the other, the craftsman's debt. One represents your ruin, the other represents his. What do? You sit in the silent room as the gray afternoon light fades. The landlord's letter in one hand, Thomas Allen's debt in the other. There are two paths to ruin, two visions of your future. One path leads to the debtor's prison, a place of filth and despair, your soul intact but your body caged. The other path leads to a meager survival, built upon the wreckage of another man's life, your body free but your soul imprisoned in a cell of your own making. Blackwood's voice echoes in your mind, a cold sermon of pragmatism, a heart of stone. The market has no loyalty. He would not hesitate. He would see the craftsman's ruin as a simple, logical necessity, a regrettable but unavoidable move in a brutal game. For a long, terrifying moment, you see the logic in it. It is the wisdom of the world you have just been cast out from. It is the wisdom of the head. But then, you remember Eleanor's face in the workshop. The look of betrayal. The quiet, devastating judgment in her voice. I hope the price you are paid is worth what you are losing. You look around the fine room, at the silk curtains and the polished wood, and you realize you have already lost. This was never yours. It was a costume, a stage set for a play that has ended in tragedy. You have been playing the part of a rich man, but the role has cost you yourself. You stand up. You fold the landlord's letter and leave it on the table. You take Thomas Allen's loan document. You do not place it in your fine coat, the one that now feels like a stranger's skin. You tuck it inside your shirt, where you can feel the crisp paper against your chest. You walk out of the room, leaving the key on the inside of the door, and you do not look back. You walk away from the ghost of your fortune. The journey back to Cheapside is a pilgrimage in reverse. With every step, you are shedding the skin of the man you tried to become. The clean, quiet air of the West End gives way to the thick, familiar soup of the city. You smell roasting meat, coal smoke, the damp earth smell of the Thames. The roar of cartwheels and street vendors, once a noise you sought to escape, now sounds like a welcome, a return to the real. The grit of the cobblestones under your worn shoes is a grounding sensation. This is a world of substance, of things that can be touched and smelled. It is a world without phantoms. You find Thomas Allen's workshop in a narrow alley, tucked behind a bustling market street. It is smaller than you remember, the wood of the sign faded and worn. You rap on the door, your knuckles sounding unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet of the laneway. The door creaks open. Thomas stands before you, a man hollowed out by despair. His face is pale, his eyes red-rimmed. He is covered in a fine layer of sawdust, a ghost of the craftsman he once was. He sees your fine clothes, your polished shoes, and he flinches, a man bracing for the final, killing blow. "Mr. Finch," he says, his voice a dry rasp. I assume you've come about the note." He makes no excuses, offers no pleas. He is a man who has already accepted his own destruction. "I have nothing." "The shares, they took everything." You say nothing. You simply reach into your coat, and he shrinks back, expecting you to produce a warrant, a threat. Instead, you pull out the loan document. You hold it between you, the stark black ink, a testament to the power you hold over him. You see the flicker of terror in his eyes, the final surrender. And then, with a slow, deliberate motion, you tear the paper in two. The sound is shockingly loud in the small workshop, a sharp, violent rip that cuts through the tension. You tear the two halves again, and then again, until the contract that represents his ruin and your only hope of survival is nothing but a small pile of useless scraps in your hand. Thomas stares at the pieces of paper, then at you, his mind unable to process what he has just seen. "But why?" he stammers, tears welling in his eyes. You are ruined as well. Everyone knows it." "Yes," you say, and the word feels true and clean in your mouth for the first time in months. "I am." You open your hand and let the scraps of the contract flutter to the sawdust-covered floor. You feel no sense of financial loss. You feel no regret. You feel only a profound, impossible lightness, as if a great heavy stone you had been carrying deep inside your chest has suddenly dissolved into dust. You turn and leave him there, a man weeping with a relief so profound it looks like pain. You step out into the alley, taking a deep breath, the air feeling fresh and new. As you walk toward the main street, a figure blocks your path. It is Eleanor. She is holding a small basket, her face tense with worry. She has clearly come to check on Thomas. She sees you, and her expression hardens. She thinks the same thing he did, that you are the vulture, come to pick at the bones. Before she can speak, Thomas rushes out of the workshop. "Eleanor, you won't believe it. Mr. Finch, he tore it up. He tore up the note. We are saved." Eleanor looks from Thomas's tear-streaked, joyful face to yours. She sees your fine coat, now looking out of place and absurd. She sees the exhaustion in your eyes. And she sees the absence of the arrogant, cynical mask you had been wearing for so long. She sees Arthur Finch again. "You lost everything," she says, her voice soft. "It is not a question. Everything," you confirm. "And you came here to forgive his debt?" "It seemed the only transaction left that had any real value," you say. A long silence hangs between you. You are no longer the agent of a powerful man. You are no longer a player in the grand game. You are just a man, with nothing to his name but the choice he has just made. "My father," Eleanor says finally, "and many others here in Cheapside, they are in ruins. The moneylenders are circling. They do not know how to read the contracts, how to manage the debts. They only know their craft." She looks at you, her gaze direct and clear. You know the world of numbers. You know its tricks, its traps. An idea begins to form in your mind, an idea born not from greed or ambition, but from the wreckage. Your knowledge, your head for figures. It is the one asset the crash could not take from you. You had used it as a weapon, as a tool for a predator, but perhaps it could be used as a shield. I could look at their accounts, you offer, the words coming slowly, carefully. I could help them organize. Create a ledger for all the artisans here, a cooperative of a sort. We could pool our resources, negotiate with suppliers as one, ensure the contracts are fair. We could build something small, something real. It is not a grand vision of a mercantile empire. It is kitchen table economics. It is small and local and honest. It is the careful, meticulous work of building something that lasts. Eleanor watches you, and for the first time since that day in her father's workshop, she smiles. It is a small, tentative smile, but it is real, and it feels worth more than all the phantom gold of the South Sea Company. You would do that? She asks. Use your head for us? I have learned a great deal about the value of things, Mistress Vance. You reply. And I have come to believe that a wise person should have money in their head, but not in their heart. You stand there in the alley, the sounds of the real, working London all around you. You have nothing, and you have everything. A year has passed. The great South Sea madness is now just a bitter memory in the city, a cautionary tale told in hushed tones. The giants of finance who were ruined have been replaced by new ones. The machine grinds on. But you are no longer a part of that machine. You have stepped out of its gears. Your world now is a small, clean office at the back of what was once the Vance workshop. It is not a grand study like Blackwood's, built to command an empire of trade. It is a simple, practical room filled with the scent of fresh-cut wood from the cabinet-maker next door and the faint, sweet smell of baking bread from the end of the alley. A small fire burns warmly in the hearth, chasing away the ever-present London damp. It is not a place of wealth. It is a place of work. Through the open door, you can see Eleanor at her bench, her brow furrowed in concentration as she brings a tiny face to life with the tip of her brush. She is a partner in this new enterprise. Her skill, Thomas Allen's craftsmanship, the baker's loaves, the weaver's cloth, these are the foundations of your new business. The Cheapside Artisans Cooperative, a small alliance of the skilled and the steadfast, the survivors of the bubble who chose to build something real in its wake. You are their accountant, their agent, their strategist. Your head for figures, once a weapon for a predator, is now a shield for the community. You negotiate with suppliers, you manage the orders, you keep the books. You ensure the value of their labor is not stolen by clever contracts or devoured by predatory moneylenders. Before you on the desk is your new ledger. It is not the cheap, scuffed book of your poverty, nor is it filled with the phantom millions of the bubble. It is a thick, sturdy volume, bound in good, honest leather. You run your finger down the latest page of entries. Sold, 6 miniature portraits, to the Duchess of Queensberry, £12. Delivered, 1 oak cabinet, to a Mr. Pepys, £8. Paid for flour and yeast, to Miller Thompson, 15 shillings. The numbers are small. They will never make you rich in the way Silas Blackwood is rich. You will never own a townhouse in St. James's Square or wear a coat of fine velvet. But as you look at these figures, you feel a deep and profound satisfaction that the soaring price of South Sea stock could never provide. These numbers are not a phantom. They are real. They are anchored to the world. They are the direct translation of skill, of time, of wood and paint and flour. Each entry is a story of a day's honest and beautiful work. You have learned the most important lesson of all. Blackwood was half right. A wise person must keep money in their head. You must understand it, calculate it, respect it as a tool. You must be its master and not be fooled by its illusions. But he was wrong about the heart. A heart of stone is not a strength, it is a sickness. Your heart must be the compass. It must be where you store the things that have no price. Integrity, community, trust, and the quiet joy of building something that lasts. The head is for the numbers, but the heart is for the why. You dip your quill in the ink and make the final entry for the week, the neat black figures bringing the column to a perfect, satisfying balance. The ledger is balanced. And so, at last, are you. So lie back, let the story settle. Feel the warmth of that small office, the quiet satisfaction of a day's good work. There is no fear here, no anxiety. Just the gentle rhythm of a life rebuilt on a foundation of integrity. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. We hope it brought you some peace and tranquility. If you have a moment, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the story in the comments. And as always, we look forward to having you with us again for our next chapter of Boring Money for Sleep. Until then, sleep well.